Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have Jessica with us. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I sincerely urge you, please go back, look at the first part of the conversation we've had with Jessica. And believe me, it would be nice for you to catch up with that because you'll know where she comes from. That gives you a bit of her journey. And then you'll be able to move with this conversation. So, Jessica, once again, thank you so much and welcome back to Future Fast. So,
Yeah.
you did mention C4 in couple of times during your journey, naturally, because you are the executive director of C4 today. So, but can you give a quick dose of history of C4?
Sure, I would love to. It's funny how even when I'm talking about my journey into what I'm doing now, it's really hard for me not to talk about C4 often because I love the organization so much and it's really embedded in everything that I do. So even when I'm not talking about it, I'm talking about it. But why don't I explain to you why that is? So C4 started in 2013 because the two co-founders, Joshua McDougall and Michael Perklin, were both trying to hire people who understood something about how Bitcoin worked. And they realized it was really easy for someone to come into a job interview or to begin talking about Bitcoin, but they didn't really get it. So in order to make it easier for people that were hiring in the cryptocurrency, I guess then it was just pretty much Bitcoin space, they needed some type of litmus test. And that became the Certified Bitcoin Professional exam and certification. And so it really has utility. There's a reason for it because hiring managers need to know if someone understands how the technology works. So they created this exam, and then and the organization and the original writers of the exam were Josh, Michael, and Vitalik Buterin. And it's a Toronto-based nonprofit. And from there, the CBP exam kind of snowballed into additional things. So we also have the Cryptocurrency Security Standard because, again, Josh and Michael saw these problems within the cryptocurrency space. So they noticed that there were hacks already happening back then. People were trusting their money with these exchanges or other people holding on to their money and losing it. So they came up with this open standard, the CCSS, Cryptocurrency Security Standard, and it's basically a benchmark for how private keys should be held to make sure that money is not lost. And the standard exists to this day, but 10 years in, it's been updated many times, and it really is focused on private key management, stopping the hacks that happen. And in our future episode, in our past episode, we talked about how important it is for, sorry, I'm trying to think how, I just lost the thread there. If you haven't noticed, I have ADHD, so that'll happen.
You're talking about how important education in this space is. So, and
Okay,
the certification.
yes. Okay, thank you. So, the certification side of this with the cryptocurrency security standard was really making sure people understand how to secure their private keys. And the reason that standard is open and or available for anyone to look at, it's not behind a paywall, is because we hope people will educate themselves on how to follow best practices for private key management. So that standard's been around since 2014. And we've also got the certified Ethereum professional exam and blockchain training. And we really have kind of come around to do full training and certification for blockchain and cryptocurrency, with a focus also on standards for cryptocurrency information systems and making sure that they are secure and people are doing the right things to stop the madness. Because in our previous episode, we touched a little bit on this idea that cryptocurrency it's not even an idea, it's true. It's not accepted as widely as we would like. There is still a stigma to it. And I think a large part of that has to do with these hacks that keep happening, because the general public can then blame the hacks on the technology, where it's not the technology, it's the people, which is similar to what we were talking about with scammers. It's not necessarily the bank that's a problem. It's the fact that somebody's calling the bank customer and tricking them into giving away their money. It's not blockchain technology or Bitcoin that's the problem. It's the fact that the people who are holding the private keys, the humans, aren't doing the things that they need to make it safe. So I think it really falls into making sure that the people who have access to cryptocurrency are doing the things that they should be doing. And a lot of companies aren't. And that's not even an opinion, it's just a fact, because we have seen time and time again these massive hacks. I mean, we can't even keep up with them. And in terms of wanting, widespread adoption, and my mother to stop being like, why did you leave academia for, what is it? What is this, Ponzi scheme?
Right.
We need these hacks to stop happening. And I think that C4 plays a really important role in that space. And that's why our standard cryptocurrency security standard exists and is available. And it's pretty exciting that companies are moving towards getting certified, or their systems getting certified to prove that they're handling their private keys, which, if you're not familiar with how cryptocurrency works, private keys are kind of like your password to be able to gain access to the cryptocurrency. But it's not as simple as just having a password to it. It's a bit more complicated than that, although I'll say I'm not a technical person, or I didn't used to be, and I've learned how to do it, so anyone can. But we generally trust others with our private keys, with our funds, and if we understood better what they were doing, we might not be doing that.
Correct. There have been some crazy stories of a founder of a company, who died, and all the investments, close to 130 million, right, from Canada itself.
Yep. And that happened in 2013, I think, if you're talking about Mount Gox or Quadri. I mean, there's so many of them, I can't even keep up. And they, like, every week there's a new hack, it seems
there
like.
was a story that happened some years back here in Bangalore, where many influential people, let me not take the name since it's in the public domain, many influential people had one person managing their investments in crypto. And at that time, today, Government of India has made, not today, a couple of years ago, Government of India has recognized cryptocurrency as an instrument of investment. So it is taxable, and it's a instrument which you can invest upon, but you cannot use it as a fiat to, pay for or anything like that. So, but on that day, when this incident happened, it was in gray. It is neither a crime nor legal to do anything with crypto. So that was the period of time. And many people used to indulge in that. And many influential people were looking at this as a means to what we refer to as black money. Basically, if you don't want to show it to the government and pay taxes towards it, they were looking at it as a means to convert it into Bitcoin and keep it as a crypto asset. And they didn't know how to go about it. And there was an intermediary who was facilitating in doing it for them. And you may recall around 5 years ago, I think. I mean, Bitcoin has had this ups and downs, right? So the previously it had happened, you may recall, it had gone to $17,000 and dropped to nearly $7,000. So that was the time, again, media, like everywhere else in the world, wrote that end of Bitcoin. I'm sure you recall, even in US it happened, right? The death of Bitcoin, end of Bitcoin, all that happened.
There's a website that tracks the number of times that Bitcoin has been called.
Correct. So I don't remember the exact time, but I think you got it. The cycles have happened. So this was the 17 and then down to 7. So this person, one of the influential people, called to say that, okay, we want to withdraw our money. So this man said that whatever you had invested, you will not even get 50% of it because the value has gone down. So you just wait it out. They thought this guy is scamming them. So they actually beat him up. And it was so bad
Wow.
that the person got into coma.
How scary.
So the rest of the people, influential people, obviously one is that it was in the public domain because those people got to beat him in a public place. So he was
Mhm.
already arrested. So all these influential people actually cornered them, saying if anything happens to him, this person family have to make up for all their losses because none of them know how to deal with the Bitcoin. Everything was
Yeah.
dealt by this guy who was in coma.
Wow.
So
Well,
that was
and
a yeah,
that brings up an interesting point, which is when somebody, even if you're holding your keys yourself, if whoever it is that's got the keys disappears or dies, what are the next steps? What happens? There is a hedge fund where the person who set everything up for ETH, they were staking ETH on behalf of a fund. They had some type of mental break and they couldn't get a hold of them, and nobody else had access to the private keys. And so all of these people lost money, which of course, this situation is because of an individual and the failure of a system. And the system that failed wasn't Ethereum. The system that failed was the system for securing the private keys
correct,
and making sure
correct.
there was a transition plan in case of a key compromise. And so that's something that's so important is if the key is compromised, and the key is like a password, it gives you access to the cryptocurrency. If that key is compromised, is there a plan? There should be preventative steps so that the key isn't compromised. But if it is, how do we know that the company holding the funds is doing the right thing so that you're not part of that hedge fund where suddenly your money is gone and there's really no recourse because the person's gone and the keys are gone, and that's kind of the end of it.
Correct. And unfortunately, these kind of stories don't end. I mean, this may not be the last story, right? These things keep happening, and that's where it's very important. And also, I think you may want to quickly mention the C4 has just not put it out in the public domain, but also helps with the implementation and the audit part. So maybe you want to give a quick dump on that.
Yeah, I would love to. So the cryptocurrency security standard, like I said, was released end of 2014, beginning of 2015. It's been updated for many years by a steering committee that is filled with cybersecurity experts and auditing experts, so that this standard really was created with the idea that it could then be used to conduct audits on cryptocurrency systems. So that is currently ongoing. We have at C4, we certify cryptocurrency security standard auditors, CCSSAs, and these auditors then go and conduct audits on these systems. So Fireblocks has had their system audited a couple times, certified, Liminal has, Tholos, and so they hire this external auditor, and then the auditor goes through, and then if all of the if it checks out, if they've gone through and done everything, it's peer reviewed by another auditor. They can reach level 1, level 2, or level 3, and the levels are not, they are like, the security does ramp up, but just because level 3 is the most secure does not mean every system needs a level 3. It really depends on the type of system and what's being done with the funds that are attached to the keys. But so these auditors are doing audits, and recently our committee met and discussed how we can do a better job implementing these the requirements in the standard. And so we're also going to be releasing the cryptocurrency security standard implementer exam and implementation learning guides, courses, things like that, so that companies that want to make sure that they are complying with the crypto security standard have some experts to help them get started on this and to work their way through it, because it is a robust standard. There's many requirements, over 40, and it goes from, do you have enough entropy when you're creating the keys? How are you using the keys? Who has access to them? Where are they stored? Is there environmental protection? You can do all of these things right and then do one thing wrong, and all of the other things that you've done are no longer useful. They don't matter because that one thing, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So it's really helpful to have that additional person that is able to come in and look from another perspective at the system to give feedback and to really help with the implementation process. And one example that I think we often think of security as an add-on, as a feature, as something that you should consider later. There's a lot of talk about marketing and shiny colors and what are the names going to be called for things and how are we going to, push the product out. But security should never be that additional add-on. And one way to think about it is if you have a sandwich, looks beautiful, seems tasty, tastes good, it's great, and the bread is soggy, and you think, okay, well, this might fall apart, but if I stick a toothpick in it, it's going to hold it together, so it's good enough. That toothpick is not enough for security. The bread is still going to fall apart and the sandwich is going to be destroyed, but it might not happen until somebody's holding that sandwich and it falls all over them. And, that's maybe a silly example or analogy, but the idea is that something can look.
But I think delivers the message very effectively.
Okay, you can see something as being great, and then it's not actually, because what's holding it together is weak. And so I think we need to be doing more than just trusting that these companies, that these systems are doing the right things, because we're being proven time and time and time again that not all systems are doing the right things. And in order to, I think, get widespread adoption and to change the messaging around cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, we need to prove that we take security seriously. We are no longer babies, a baby industry. We have grown up. We're at.
This is the system to keep the trustless system trustable, right?
Exactly. We're not talking about securing the technology like on a blockchain. We're talking about securing what gives you access to your assets are on blockchain.
So how's the Web3 community's response to this has been across the globe?
Sorry,
you did mention a lot of them have used and repeatedly using the audit and all that, but from a sense of geography, do you want to put it where the users are coming from?
Sure. So we have users from all over the world that are focused on both our certification exams for Bitcoin and for Ethereum, and then also the cryptocurrency security standard. So this standard is not focused on what the regulatory world or regulatory system in your jurisdiction is doing, although the water may be kind of moving that way. But it's worldwide. The standard applies to the technology, not the people. So it can work anywhere in the world, and it should. How I'm securing my private keys in the United States doesn't need to differ than how you're securing your private keys in India, to a degree. So for example, we have to pay attention to environmental factors. Do I live in a flood zone? Do you live in a flood zone? How do we make sure that we protect against things like that? But in general, most of them are, although they kind of are modified slightly, they are requirements that work for all of these different systems. And they really, the steering committee has considered so many different things in making sure that the standard works, but it is worldwide, and it's intentionally worldwide because it's a worldwide technology. And so people all over the world need this, companies all over the world need this. And it is interesting to see companies that are ready to jump on board, get certified, and they really want to do all of the things possible to ensure their stakeholders that they are not just adding this toothpick into the sandwich afterwards and hoping for the best, that they're building their products with the sturdiest, most secure systems in place. And that is something that happens or doesn't happen universally. It is not specific to any type of region. I will say different areas that are putting in more regulations or working towards having more regulations around the technology may need to adopt this standard faster, because it is something that eventually is going to probably be written into a lot of frameworks, because it exists, it's open. Why reinvent the wheel when it's already been created by experts? But really, it's for everyone. You can look at it as an individual and see what you could be doing. And companies with information security systems that use cryptocurrency should also be doing this as well. And
So
that's why.
Jessica, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, this is why we are now going to be releasing implementers, because we need people to be able to go out there and really
Correct.
help others understand how their systems work in relation to this. Are they missing anything? Should they be considering something from other angles? Because actually, this kind of ties back to our conversation with being an entrepreneur. You can't do everything.
Correct. And also the aspect that, we also we actually have put up a lot of our training programs for free. And biggest learning is that less than 3% are able to put enough effort in learning by themselves. Majority of them actually come back and say, we want help. We don't mind paying for it, but we want help to learn. So this is where this implementer is a very key role, because even though the resources are there, template is there, you can implement it yourself. It's so necessary to have an external implementer who can handhold you and implement it. So I completely in sync with that. I'm sure our listeners also appreciate this. Yeah, you're saying something.
Yeah, we want to do what we can to make the space safer. And we've realized that there is a need for implementers to be out there and helping people really focus on how to implement this standard. And so we're excited that these trainings are going to be happening, that this new certificate is going to be available in the somewhat near future, and that we're really going to be able to make a difference at multiple different levels within the industry and impact real people. We talked before about this idea of banking the unbanked and helping real individuals. And I think sometimes when we're talking about these large exchanges or hedge funds, whatever it is, it's easy to forget that there are people at the end of this technology trail.
Well, I'll just like to add to what who could be the people who will benefit as implementers. Are also not just the technology, people in the technology space, but also people in the legal space, people in the compliance space, people in the finance space, because all these specialities are the touch points in this line of business. So, so each of these people can actually be the implementers. So, so we need to address this and also make these certification programs available to all these categories. So I'm just adding to what you're saying for the benefit of our company.
I totally agree. There are so many different roles that need to understand how this standard works from different angles, and the implementer training will really help people feel like they understand how to make their system secure. Because like you said, you might think, why would a lawyer need to understand how this works? Well, from a legal perspective,
and they are working with the Web3 companies. So they are actually, some of them can be better equipped to do this part.
Yep. And do you want to have access to a private key? Do you know what you're getting into? If you're not fully familiar with it, you need somebody to walk you through. And I want to be very clear that people that are working on the implementation or the audits, they are not gaining access to the private keys and seeing that information remains secure as it should. C4 doesn't get access to this. We have it set up very intentionally so that we're implementing these safety measures. We're making sure that these controls that are required are being met, but there is no transmission of private information to either the auditors, the peer reviewers, or C4 itself. We don't get any of that private information. The auditors redact the information when they pass it on to the peer reviewer, and the auditors themselves don't get access to the private keys. And if you are implementing this system, if you have an implementer who is coming to help you, or if you have someone coming to do an audit, we have a ton of information about what you should or shouldn't be sharing. And the basis of it is do not share your private key with anyone under any circumstance, because the word private's there for a reason.
Well, Jessica, can you just share, because see, this is a space which is continuously evolving, right? There's so much of new things happening on a daily basis across the globe. So, how does C4 keep upgrading itself and process? Of course, you did mention that CCSS itself has many versions to it, right? And which is rightly so. That's how it should be. So, how do you go about doing it? What kind of system is in place to keep it updated?
So we're very open to feedback from the community. Nothing excellent evolves in a vacuum. We really need people to have opinions on it, to give their perspectives. So auditors that take the exam are encouraged to participate in our advocacy group so that they can give feedback of what they see actually out in the field doing these audits. Our steering committee is filled with people that are extremely knowledgeable about cybersecurity and cryptocurrency and auditing. But really, it comes down to feedback and learning from companies, keeping up with what's happening in the world, paying attention to the hacks, and relying on many people to come together to form these standards. And in any committee, you're going to have people who disagree about different things. And that's actually really good, because if everyone just gets on a committee and is like, yep, okay, yep, sounds good, what's the point of a committee? We need people that'll say, well, what about this? And I've seen our steering committee spend an hour analyzing a couple words in the standard to make sure that it actually is doing what it's intended to do, and there isn't going to be misinterpretation of it, which is also where the implementation side of things comes in, because we want to make sure that it's being implemented correctly and audited correctly so that it is useful. And so far that is what we've been doing. But I really think the important part of keeping a standard excellent is learning from others and not having the attitude that everything is perfect and nothing ever needs changes, because first of all, nothing's perfect. Things always need to be updated, but even more so when we're working in an industry that evolves so quickly. The technology changes very fast, not so fast that we can't keep up with it, but you do need to be aware of what's happening. And, when the standard was written to begin with, Bitcoin was the only cryptocurrency out there. Ethereum didn't exist yet. I mean, there might have been some altcoins or forks from Bitcoin, but it was not what it is now. And so we've changed it and moved forward. And I think that our committee and our team at C4 has done an awesome job, and we really would not be here without our security auditors as well, and the community that believes in this and wants to do what they can to make sure that these hacks stop happening, because like we said, it reduces any sort of, I would say, belief in the safety of the system. Anytime a hack happens, people start to question more and more and more. And the less it happens, the more people are going to want to adopt these cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology in general. And so I think that it's just so important to use your community and have your community use you, and to do it in a collaborative way that feels really positive and is making positive changes.
Wonderful. Well, as an executive director of C4, what challenges do you see going ahead? It's not that you had less challenges in the past, but going forward, what kind of challenges do you see? And a few things that you think really hit you awake in the night? Is there anything like that?
Well, so I think in any position that, we have, there's always many challenges that we can face. We can also look at them as opportunities. One of the awesome things about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency is that it is constantly evolving. You are not going to get bored if you work in this industry. I will tell you that every day it's something new. And the learning curve at the beginning is kind of steep because there's so much to learn and to try to keep up with. It does get easier, but it is constantly evolving. There's always new information. So I think there's an opportunity to build these communities so that you have a wealth of information at your fingertips and that you can work with other people to really learn and grow. But it is challenging. I think that it wouldn't be true to say that it's simple to keep up with everything, because it's not. There's many different types of currencies. Blockchain technology is being used in many different ways. And if you aren't at least trying to keep up with reading things, talking to people, I think it would be easy to kind of miss the boat on what's changing. But also the work-life balance in working in a technology like this with people who live around the world. I mean, Nanju, it's night for you, it's morning for me. And, I regularly meet with somebody who lives in New Zealand and it's the day after for him. So when we talk later today, it'll be his Saturday. And you just kind of have to go with it, I think, and be flexible with it, but also take care of yourself, which I saw recently on LinkedIn, a fifth person who I know who's worked in the cryptocurrency space for years, who's taking a sabbatical. And I think that's because there is constant communication. There's never a dull moment. I'll check my phone and have 100 messages in the morning for different groups I'm a part of. And so you really have to sit back and say, what do I need to participate in order to be successful in terms of the position I'm in as an executive director? Where can I sit back? And luckily, I have an incredible team that does a lot of, the behind the scenes things that allow me to do something like a podcast. And so I think that there's opportunities for collaboration, for community. One of the things that I think is most important is having a team that you can really trust and support one another. The team at C4, from our committees to those people who are getting certified to the internal team that works together, it really has been I guess a way for us to grow together, learn from each other, and call each other out on things. I mean, no team is perfect. We need to be able to give feedback to say like, hey, I don't think this is working, or could we try this? And just communicate with each other about it. And I think that's made us really strong. I won't say we're like a family, because I feel like every time a company says they're like a family, it's like, it's pretty dysfunctional family, but we are friendly with one another and we do respect each other. And we also have to pay attention to when things get to be too much and we need to step back and take care of ourselves. And that is one of the biggest challenges, I would say, within a industry that is rapidly evolving. How do you make sure you're balancing self-care, your mental health, while also continuing to learn all of this new technology and meet all of these new people and keep up with everything?
All right. Well,
Do you
for all
find
the sorry?
Do you find that challenging as well to keep up with people in your community? And I mean, same thing, you are global as well. So like, it's your Friday night. It's my Friday morning. So I don't know what you generally do on a Friday night, but it's, you have to make concessions.
Oh, that's true. But honestly, I guess we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't enjoy it, right? I mean, that's what uh, uh, is the biggest motivating factor here. That we don't
Absolutely.
really. If not for this, Friday evening would have been a problem. Saturday would have been a problem. There are Saturdays I actually go out and meet people and talk about these things. So yeah, I think what you enjoy makes it so important. If you don't, then you won't be doing it. And if
For
people do that, then they'd be very stressed out.
Yeah, and I really think it's knowing your limits. That's a part of it, recognizing when you're starting to get to the point where you think you do need a break, but working with people who you really respect and like to work with, and just not taking everything so seriously. I mean, some things you need to take seriously. Don't joke around with your security. Do the things that you need to do well, but also like laugh, have silly things. Like our team has an internal team name that we call ourselves, which I'm not going to give away, but we do all kinds of things that are really fun, because I think we've all had jobs where you dread getting up, going to them, you dread meetings. And I think it's really important to be excited with what you're doing. And what a gift to be able to love what you do every day and to talk about it. And like for me to get up really early in the morning because I want to get on a call and talk about cryptocurrency and blockchain tech with you. I mean, there was no like, oh, I've got this recording this morning. I was like, ooh, I get to go talk about what I love with somebody
That's right.
I really enjoy speaking with. Like that's something that I think is a gift.
Well, I didn't realize that till I started interacting with a lot of people who actually dread what they do. So it was for me. It took me some time to say that okay, there are such people. It's unfortunate, but there are, and hopefully they will jump to Web3 and they'll start enjoying it.
Yeah, and if you are looking to switch into a different field, I think Web3 is a place for everyone. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my background, like I said, is in education, but my master's degree is in English. And when I started to join in 2017, when I started to learn about this new technology, I was way out of my depth in terms of technological advancements that had happened right next to me that I completely missed because I was working in higher education, which I will say is frequently not at the same place that innovative industries are. So I didn't know what a password manager was. I did not have, I mean, there are so many examples of things where I was like, oh my God, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? But once I spent the time to actually do it, my life has been so much richer because there are all of these incredible tools that make our lives easier and that are really fun to learn about. But there's so many different spaces, different positions within blockchain technology, Web3. So if you're a marketer, if
Jessica, I lost you. Jessica, I lost you.
being an administrator in higher ed would lead me down this path. There's definitely space. You just have to go out and take the time to become educated. And, C4's got resources that can do that. And then you can prove that you're certified and you understand the tech, and then get a job in the space and start doing what you love. You don't need to wake up in the mornings and groan that you have to go to work. You can wake up in the mornings and be excited that you get to talk about something that is really, really cool.
Wonderful. And thank you so much. And for all the audience and listeners, the C4 link is there right below this podcast. And also, very quickly, Jessica, you had mentioned a book in the first part of our conversation. Can you maybe take another minute talking about the book and the author?
Sure. So I brought up Crypto Asset Inheritance Planning by Pamela Morgan, who, full disclosure, she is a board member at C4, but her book is, I think, really, really important. She also has a course on Antonopoulos.com that you can check out, but it's all about what happens to your crypto assets after you die and how do you make sure that they're passed on to your loved ones after, not before. And no one likes to talk about the inevitable. It's not a fun topic, but it's also not fun.
Very necessary as well.
Yeah, it's not fun when you think about the fact that you've invested in something that your family might not benefit from, or
not even aware of.
Yes, exactly. Not aware of, don't know what to do. But so Pamela Morgan's book, which, like we said, we'll put it in you'll put it in the show notes.
The link, yes.
But yeah, crypto asset inheritance planning is a simple guide for those who own crypto assets, who hold them and hold their private keys, to make sure that you are not only securing them appropriately, but you have a plan for your loved ones who might not be crypto nerds to be able to figure out how to gain access to it without losing the funds, because there are all kinds of situations where you don't understand how the technology works. You know that your loved one was involved in it, and you say, hey, I've got this long string of numbers, or hey, there's 12 words or 24 words written on this piece of paper, and show it to someone. Do you know what this is? Well, that's your seed phrase, and they could gain access to your funds. So the book really walks you through how to set up systems so that your cryptocurrency will safely be available to your loved ones, to your family when the time comes. So I can't recommend the book enough. There's a piece in the book where it talks about this individual who tried to make their own plan because they thought they were really creative. Well, fun fact, that person was me. And I think it's super important to recognize that when you don't understand fully how something works, you might think you've got a creative plan in a way to do something, and follow the experts. I have learned what to do, and I make sure that I don't go rogue and come up with my own plan. There are proven ways to secure your funds. Use them, learn from the experts, and don't make fun of me too much when you read into the book what I think we named her Rachel, something like that, what she did.
Well, I would say do be very creative, but first be informed. So get the book, read it, be informed, then get creative, and perhaps even share your story as well. Right. Thank you so much, Jessica. This is wonderful, and I'm sure all our audience and listeners also are able to appreciate why this conversation is so important. Please do share it across with all those people, and particularly if you have friends or relatives who are working in the Web3 space, make sure they get to see this, hear this conversation, because it's very important for their business. Because what they hear in this and what they follow from here on or take away from this would be useful for their customers, which will in turn help their business. So that's where it is. Thank you once again. And Jessica, once again, thank you so much. And audience and listeners, do come back soon. And if you're not yet subscribed to Future Fast, do it right now. Jessica, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Nanju.